Once upon a time, there was a man named Dele Adeniran, and he was very rich. So rich that people called him a billionaire. And he lived in a big country in Africa, in a very beautiful city with tall buildings and bright lights. And many people knew his name and were afraid to make him angry because he was very powerful in business, and he could make companies grow or fall with just a few words. And he wore fine suits and shiny shoes, and he had many cars, big houses, and even his own airplane. And when people saw him, they said, "Wow, that is Dele. He is so important." And they tried to smile and be nice so he would like them. And from far away, it looked like his life was perfect and that he had everything a person could ever want, because he had money, respect, and a beautiful wife named Amara, who was gentle, kind, and younger than him. And when they walked together, people would stare and whisper. They looked like a perfect couple in a picture. For Amara had smooth skin, bright eyes, and a soft voice. And many people said she was lucky to marry such a rich man, and they also said he was lucky to have such a pretty and calm wife. And sometimes they would smile and hold hands at parties, and cameras would flash, and their photos would go on the news and on phones, and everyone would say, "Look at them, they are so happy together." But inside Dele's heart, there was a small problem that no one could see, a tiny worry that grew bigger and bigger every day, like a balloon that keeps getting air. And this worry was a question that did not let him rest at night. And the question was, does Amara truly love me for who I am? Or does she only love my money and my power and my big name? And he tried to push the question away, but it always came back, like a buzzing fly that kept returning to his ear. And sometimes when he sat alone in his large room with soft chairs and big windows, he would look at his wedding picture and ask himself, if I was poor, would she still be here with me, smiling like that? And he remembered how, at their wedding, many people had whispered that she was only with him because of his wealth. And even though she never said anything unkind and always treated him with care, those words had stayed stuck in his mind like thorns. And so even when she brought him food, or held his hand, or rested her head on his shoulder, he still felt scared and unsure. And instead of talking to her about his fears, he kept them inside and made them grow. And while people outside saw only his cars and his big office and his big smile, no one knew that he could not trust the love in his own home. And one day, when he woke up early and looked at himself in the mirror with tired eyes, he whispered, "I need to know the truth, even if it hurts me." And because he was used to making big, strong decisions in his business, he decided to make a big, strange decision in his life too. A decision that most people would never think of. And this decision was that he would pretend to die so he could see what his wife would do without him and without his eyes on her. And he told no one the full truth except a very small group of people he trusted to help him. People who worked with secret things like security and safety, and they helped him plan his fake death carefully, step by step, like a game that had to look very real so everyone would believe it. And they chose a day when Dele would travel in his own private jet from a city called Lagos to another big city called Dubai. And on that day, the news would say that the jet had exploded in the air and that there were no survivors. And everyone would cry and talk about how sad it was. And while all that was happening, Dele would not really be dead. He would be hidden away where nobody could find him, watching everything from far away. And so the day of the trip finally came, and the sky was wide and blue. And at the airport, people saw Dele walking toward his shiny jet, waving to a few workers as he climbed the small stairs. And cameras in the distance caught little pictures of him. And later those pictures would be played again and again on the news. And inside the jet, he sat down in his soft seat, and his heart was beating fast. Not from fear of flying, but from the strange thing he was about to do. And he thought of Amara at home and wondered what she was doing that very moment. And for a second, he almost changed his mind. But his worry about her love was stronger, and he whispered, "I must know. I must see what happens." And then the plan began, and the jet took off and flew into the sky. And at a secret time and place before anything bad really happened, Dele was taken away safely with the help of his security team, and he disappeared from the jet without anyone else knowing. And later, the world heard a terrible story, that Dele's private jet had exploded in the air and crashed, and that nobody had lived. And screens all over the city and the country began to show breaking news. And big letters on the television said, "Billionaire Dele Adeniran dies in jet explosion." And people gasped, held their hands to their mouths, and began to talk and cry. And reporters explained how the jet had gone down and how shocked everyone was. And soon the story spread around the world, and calls started flying from phone to phone, and messages were sent everywhere. And all of Dele's workers, friends, and family members felt that the ground under them was shaking like an earthquake. Because for them, he was not just a man, he was a leader, a boss, a helper, and also a very big name. And all over the internet, people began to write sad words and say how they remembered him. And some wrote that he had been kind and generous. And some wrote that he had been tough but fair. And some even wrote that he sometimes scared them. But they respected him. And in the middle of all this sadness was his wife Amara, sitting in their huge mansion with its tall gates and shiny floors and quiet rooms. And when she first heard the news that her husband's jet had exploded, strong tears ran down her face and her body shook, and she cried out, and people around her tried to hold her. And the story that the world saw was of a young widow whose rich husband had just died suddenly. And cameras outside the mansion showed a few moments of her being supported by others as she walked. And everyone watching said, "Oh, how sad the poor woman." And people thought she was broken and full of sorrow, and they believed that this was the end of a perfect life. But what Amara felt and what Dele believed about her feelings were not the same. And somewhere far away, in a place no one else knew about, Dele was not dead at all. Because while all this noise and crying and news talking was happening, he was sitting in a special secret building, a safe house hidden underground, with walls made of strong concrete and doors that locked with heavy metal. And the rooms were simple, with no gold or fancy things, and there were screens on the walls that showed live videos from cameras in his house and from news channels. And he sat there in a plain chair, wearing normal clothes instead of his fancy suits, looking at all the screens at once. And his face was serious and hard, and he watched the words about his death appear again and again, replaying the same sad pictures. And he watched the gate of his house, the front door, the living room, and other places inside his mansion, because he had tiny hidden cameras there already for security before. And now he used them for something else. And as he looked, his mind was full of mixed feelings. Because on one side, he felt guilty for making everyone cry and feel pain. And on the other side, he felt curious and stubborn, saying to himself, "Now I will finally see the truth with my own eyes. Now I will know who really loved me and who only loved my money." And he told himself that this was the cold test he needed, a test without soft feelings, a test that would show people's hearts when they thought he was gone forever. And so he sat there hidden from the world, while the world believed his story had ended. And he fixed his eyes on the screen showing his wife Amara, ready to study every move she made and every word she said, not knowing yet that this test would change everything he thought he knew about love, loyalty, and himself. Once upon a time, after the whole world believed that Dele was gone forever, and after the news people kept saying again and again that his jet had exploded and that nobody had lived, Dele stayed inside the secret underground safe house and kept watching the screens in front of him. And the screens showed his big mansion, the halls, the doors, the living room, and most importantly, his wife Amara, who sat alone in the middle of the giant house that suddenly felt too quiet and too empty. And as Dele watched her, he told himself, now the real test begins, because this was the moment he had been waiting for. The moment when he would see what she would do when she believed he was no longer alive. Amara sat on the sofa with her hands shaking a little, her eyes red from crying earlier, and she looked around the room as if the walls suddenly felt like strangers. And she wiped her face with a cloth and took a deep breath as if trying to stop herself from crying again. And Dele watched her every move, trying to read her heart like a book. But he still felt confused because he remembered how she had fallen to the floor when she first heard the news, crying loudly. And now she looked too quiet, too calm, and that quietness made Dele even more unsure. He leaned closer to the screen and whispered to himself, is she sad or is she pretending? And his chest felt tight, because he wanted to know the truth so badly, and he also feared the truth at the same time. A few hours later, as the sun began to go down and the sky turned a soft orange, Amara stood up from the sofa and walked slowly to the dining table, where her phone was lying, and she picked it up and stared at it for a long moment, biting her lip as if she was thinking very hard, and then she pressed a number. Dele sat up straight in his chair, his heart pounding like a drum, and he said softly, "Who is she calling?" The phone rang only once before someone answered, and then something happened that made Dele freeze completely. Amara whispered into the phone with a voice that was soft but steady, and she said, "Babe, it's done. He's gone." When Dele heard those words, it felt like the whole room around him became colder, like ice was crawling into his chest, and he stared at Amara on the screen with wide eyes and he whispered, "Babe, babe." His voice trembled because that word sounded like something a woman would call a lover, not a cousin, not a friend, not anyone innocent. "It's done. He's gone." Her words replayed again and again in his head like a loud bell that would not stop ringing, and his breath came fast, because this was exactly the kind of thing he had been afraid of, the fear that had pushed him to make this huge plan of faking his death. And hearing her say those words made him feel like everything inside him was breaking, piece by piece. He leaned closer to the screen, showing the camera view of the living room, and Amara was still holding the phone near her ear, listening to whoever was on the other side, nodding slowly, and then she said, "Okay, come tomorrow. We have to talk." And then she ended the call, put the phone down, and sat back on the sofa with a blank face. Dele felt anger mixing with sadness inside him, like a storm made of fire and rain at the same time. And he stood up from his chair and walked around the small safe house room quickly, clenching his fists, saying, "Who is she talking to? Who is she calling babe? Did she want me gone? Did she plan something?" His mind started spinning with hundreds of bad thoughts, and his fear grew even more, because he had never heard her speak like that before, not even in private moments he had seen through the security cameras. And now the idea that she had been hiding another man inside her heart made him feel sick and shaky. He sat down again and kept his eyes glued to the screens. A little while later, the front door of the mansion opened, and Dele watched as a man walked into the house. It was Chibuzo, Dele's own cousin, a man he had trusted, a man who had eaten at his table, smiled at him, hugged him at family events, and even worked closely with him in some business matters. When Chibuzo stepped inside, he did not look sad or broken the way Dele would expect a family member to be after hearing of his death. Instead, he walked calmly, almost too calmly, like someone who already knew what had happened. And when Amara saw him, she did not scream or cry again. Instead, she looked at him with eyes that were heavy but not surprised, and she stood up and walked toward him slowly. Dele leaned forward, his eyes wide, watching closely, his heart pounding harder with every step they took toward each other. Chibuzo reached out and gently touched Amara's shoulder in a way that felt too soft, too familiar, too close. And then he said, "Are you okay?" His voice was low and calm, and Amara nodded a little and looked down at the floor. They were standing too close, closer than Dele liked, closer than cousins-in-law should ever stand, and Dele felt anger rising up like fire inside him again. Why is he touching her like that? Why is she letting him? What is happening in my house? He whispered angrily. Then Amara and Chibuzo moved to sit on the sofa together, not touching, but still sitting close, too close for Dele's comfort, and they began to talk in low voices, almost whispering, and even though the camera microphones could not pick up all their words, Dele could see the way they looked at each other. They leaned in, they spoke softly, they nodded at the same time. They exchanged glances that looked too secret, and none of it looked like grief or simple family support. Instead, it looked like planning, like secret ideas, like things they had already talked about before. Dele felt his stomach twist as he watched them, and he muttered, "Are they working together? Is she his lover? Did they want me out of the way?" He watched them for a long time, unable to look away, even though each second made him feel worse and worse. After some time, Chibuzo stood up and walked toward the hallway, and Amara followed him a few steps, and they spoke again in whispers, their heads close together, their faces serious but calm, and Dele felt like the whole world was turning upside down. These were the two people he had trusted inside his house, his wife and his cousin, and they were acting like they had a secret together. A secret that only made sense if they did not truly care that he was dead. When Chibuzo finally left the house and Amara closed the door behind him, Dele sat back in his chair, feeling empty and shocked. He stared at the screen showing the closed door and said softly, "She cried, but she stopped so fast. She called someone babe. She let Chibuzo hold her." They whispered. They looked too close. His voice shook. Was this what they were hiding all along? Were they waiting for this moment? He covered his face with his hands for a moment, breathing hard, feeling pain in his chest that he could not control. He thought about the times he had kissed Amara on the forehead, the times she had hugged him, the quiet nights they had spent together, and he wondered if any of it had been real. He lowered his hands slowly and looked at the screen again, and Amara was now sitting alone once more, her hands folded together on her lap, her face calm but unreadable. She was not crying anymore, not shaking, not screaming, not even wiping tears. She just sat there, still and quiet, and something about that quietness made Dele feel even more confused, because it did not look like the grief of a wife who had lost her husband. It looked like someone who was thinking hard, like someone waiting for something, like someone planning something. He whispered, "What are you thinking, Mara? What are you hiding? What are you not showing me?" The more he watched, the more unsure he became. Part of him thought, "She does not love me. She is happy I am gone. She wants someone else." And another small part of him whispered, "But she cried earlier. She loved me once, didn't she?" But the doubt was stronger, fueled by the phone call, the calm behavior, the closeness with Chibuzo, and he could not stop thinking, maybe I was right to test her. Maybe she was never true to me. Hours passed, and Dele stayed awake the whole time, his eyes hurting from staring at the screens. But he did not stop watching, not even for one moment. He watched Amara walk around the house slowly, sometimes sitting down, sometimes standing up, sometimes touching things with her fingers, as if trying to remember something. But she never looked as broken as he thought she would look. She did not scream his name. She did not fall on the floor again. She did not call anyone crying for help. Instead, she stayed mostly calm, and Dele kept saying to himself, "Why is she so calm? Why does she look like she already knew?" Finally, late at night, Amara walked to the stairs and slowly went up to their bedroom. Dele watched her open the door, walk inside, and close it behind her, and his heart felt too heavy, because he wondered if she would sleep alone in the big bed without thinking of him, without missing him, without crying again. He watched as she sat down on the bed, took off her shoes, and looked around the room quietly. She did not look excited or happy, but she also did not look like someone who had just lost the love of her life. She looked like someone who was thinking deeply, someone who was hiding something, someone who had secrets. Dele sat there in the safe house, staring at her on the screen, and whispered, "I will watch you, Amara. I will watch everything you do. I will see if you truly loved me or if you were just waiting for me to be gone." And with that, he leaned back in his chair, his eyes still fixed on the screen, ready to continue the test he had started, not knowing that the truth he thought he was seeing was not the real truth at all, and that the things he believed were signs of betrayal were only shadows of a much bigger mystery he did not yet understand. Once upon a time, after Amara went upstairs to the bedroom and the house became quiet again, Dele stayed in the secret safe house, watching every corner of his mansion on the screens in front of him. And even though his eyes were tired and his head felt heavy, he refused to rest because his heart was too full of fear and anger and confusion. And he wanted to see everything that happened next with his own eyes. The night passed slowly, and Dele did not sleep even for 1 minute, because each time he closed his eyes, he remembered the way Amara had said, "Babe, it's done. He's gone." And the way Chibuzo had touched her shoulder gently, and those memories made him sit up with a burst of worry. So he stayed awake, staring at the screens like a man guarding a treasure he no longer trusted anyone with. By morning, When the sun came up and its bright yellow light filled the sky, the mansion also woke up with sounds of people walking around, opening doors, answering phones, and crying softly in different corners of the house, because many workers who lived inside the estate had now heard the sad news that their boss was dead, and they felt scared and lost. Dele watched them move through the hallways, carrying tissue boxes, placing flowers on tables, whispering to each other, and even hugging. And he felt a strange feeling in his chest, because they all believed he was gone, and their reactions were real and full of confusion and pain. He watched one of the older workers sit on a chair and wipe her eyes with her scarf, saying, "Ah, God, why now?" He was too young, and Dele felt his throat tighten, because she had worked for him for many years, and he had always seen her as loyal and kind. Watching her cry made him feel a little guilty, but the guilt did not erase the burning worry he felt about Amara and Shabuzo, so he kept his focus on the camera showing the living room. A few hours later, the front door of the mansion opened again, and this time people came in not to comfort Amara, but to talk about business, and Dele recognized them at once. His so-called best friend Kunle, his trusted lawyer Mr. Adeyemi, and his personal assistant Timi. They walked into the living room with serious faces, whispering to each other as they sat down, and even though their faces looked sad, their eyes did not look like they were full of true pain. Instead, they looked sharp, focused, and alert, like people thinking hard about something important they wanted to do. Dele felt a strange coldness inside him, because these were the people he trusted in business, the people who knew many secrets, the people he had helped for years, and now they were gathering in his home only one day after his death, which felt too fast and too strange. He turned up the sound on the screen so he could hear their voices, and he listened closely as Kunle leaned forward and whispered, "We need to move quickly before others notice." And Mr. Adeyemi nodded and whispered back, "Yes, yes, the company will be confused right now. This is the best time to make changes." Dele sat up straight, shocked, because these words did not sound like the words of men mourning their friend. They sounded like the words of men planning to take something. He looked at the screen with a frown and whispered, "What changes? What are you talking about?" even though they could not hear him. Timmy, the assistant, pulled out some papers and said, "The board is already asking questions. If we act today, we can shift the control." And Dele's eyes widened in disbelief. Shift the control? Shift control of his own company? Only one day after people thought he had died? He felt his heart jump in anger as he whispered, "So this is what you wanted? My death was your chance?" And his hands clenched tightly. He watched them lean close together and talk in soft voices so no one else could hear. And Dele's anger grew hotter and hotter as he understood more and more. They were trying to take his company for themselves. Kunle, the man he had once called brother, the man he had helped rise in the business world, said calmly, "Dele kept too much power for himself. Now that he's gone, we can divide it better." And Mr. Adeyemi added, "Yes, we must move before his will is read or before too many lawyers get involved." Dele felt like shouting, "I trusted you. I gave you everything." But instead, he just watched with a heavy heart, understanding that these men had never been true to him. They had only been true to what they could gain from him. But the shock did not stop there. As he watched his betraying friends make plans, another surprise came through the screen. The cameras showed that Timmy had been sending messages to one of Dele's biggest business rivals, a man from another company who had always wanted to beat Dele in the market, but never succeeded. Now Dele saw Timmy whispering on the phone saying, "Yes, sir, things are moving. He is gone now. We can discuss that deal." And Dele felt sick. "My own assistant is helping my enemy," he whispered with disbelief. His hands shook because betrayal was coming from every direction like arrows. Then things became even worse. On another screen, the camera in his office showed his lawyer, Mr. Adeyemi, secretly opening drawers and typing on Dele's computer. He was not crying or praying or remembering the man he had worked for. Instead, he was scanning documents and whispering to someone over the phone, "Yes, I can remove this one. I can adjust that one. If I do it now, no one will question it." And Dele realized the lawyer was altering important papers, probably to give more money and power to himself and the others. And he felt like his stomach was twisting. He moved his eyes quickly between the screens, watching one betrayal after another. Kunle sent emails from his phone to foreign investors, telling them that he was prepared to take leadership now that Dele was gone. Timmy walked into rooms he normally never entered and took pictures of files. Mr. Adeyemi whispered to someone at the door, giving them a small envelope full of secret papers, and all of them looked too calm and too ready. It was clear now they had been waiting for the perfect moment to take everything Dele built. But the worst part still lay ahead. Dele watched as Chibuzo returned to the house later in the afternoon, and this time he did not come alone. He came with a folder under his arm and a smile that was too relaxed, too confident, too sure of himself. When Chibuzo walked into the living room and saw Kunle and the others, he did not act surprised or sad. Instead, he greeted them like old partners, and they all nodded at him like they knew each other well. Dele's heart almost stopped. He whispered, "They know each other? They have been talking? Behind my back?" And suddenly his mind began to put pieces together. The secret looks, the whispers, the calmness, the quick steps they were taking to grab his company. Everything pointed to one terrible truth. Chibuzo was part of the plan. His own cousin had been working with the others, and maybe even with Amara, though Dele was still unsure of her part. Dele leaned forward, his eyes locked on the screen as Chibuzo sat down with the group and opened the folder. He said in a low voice, "All the numbers are here. If we push today, the board will have no choice." And Kunle nodded and added, "Good. With you and Amara inside the house, things will move faster." Dele felt like the air had been sucked out of the safe house. His chest hurt as he whispered, "They are using her. Or she is helping them. Which one is it?" He watched their faces, watched their smiles, watched their determination, and his anger changed to something deeper, something like fear mixed with sadness. Because these men were not strangers or enemies outside his circle. These were the people who knew his life, his heart, his secrets. People he had cared for, trusted, and helped. People he had eaten meals with, traveled with, laughed with, and supported. And now they were acting like his death was a gift that had opened a door for them. But the one person who hurt him the most was still Amara. He had trusted her more than all the others. And now, even though he did not fully understand her actions yet, he still felt betrayed by the calm way she behaved, and the strange phone call she had made, and the way she had whispered with Chibuzo. Every step she took now made him doubt more. While the others talked, Amara walked back into the room quietly, and when they saw her, they all stopped talking for a moment. She sat down and listened as Chibuzo told her something in a soft voice, and she nodded with a thoughtful look. Not a broken, sad, heart-crushed look, but a calm and serious one. Dele watched this and felt the pain rise again. Why is she not crying? Why is she sitting with them? Why does she look like she was expecting this meeting? He whispered. Slowly, as he watched them all whisper and plan together, he felt something heavy settle inside him, something like a cold shadow. He realized the test was showing him something worse than he expected. Not only had Amara acted strangely, but the people he trusted most were proving that their loyalty was fake and their smiles had been masks. He watched Kunle, his best friend, speak with force. "We must take control now," he said, "before anyone else touches the throne." The throne. That was what they saw his company as, a big, shiny chair they wanted to sit on. Not a place built with love and hard work. He watched Mr. Adeyemi hide documents inside his briefcase with quick hands. He watched Timmy type messages fast, like someone who had been waiting for this moment for a long time. He watched Chibuzo act like he belonged there, like he owned the house now, and every second made Dele's heart ache more. But inside all that pain, a fire also began to grow, a fire of determination. Because if these people wanted to steal everything from him, then he would fight them. He would watch them first, yes, watch them make more mistakes, gather more proof, reveal their true hearts. Then he would rise again, not as a ghost or a memory, but as a man who had seen everything clearly. A man ready to take back what was his. As afternoon slowly turned to night, Dele kept watching the screens, one eye always fixed on Amara. He watched her walk around the house, talk softly to the workers, whisper with Chibuzo again, stare out the window as if thinking deep thoughts, and he felt stuck in the middle of fear and confusion. He did not know yet if she was part of the betrayal or trapped inside it, but her calmness in the secret phone call still bothered him deeply. The chapter ended with Dele sitting alone in the safe house, watching his world fall apart piece by piece. The friends he trusted were snakes hiding in the grass. The lawyer he respected was a thief stealing with quiet hands. His assistant was working with enemies. And inside his own home, his wife and cousin were whispering secrets he could not yet fully understand. He tightened his jaw, stared at the screens, and whispered, "I see all of you, and I will not let you win." Once upon a time, after Dele spent the whole day watching his so-called friends whisper and plan like hungry animals, and after he watched his cousin Chibuzo walk around his house like he owned it, the night came again, and the mansion became quiet once more, with only the sound of soft footsteps from the workers who were still confused and sad about their boss's death. But Dele did not feel sleepy at all, because his mind was too full of thoughts, and his heart felt like someone was squeezing it again and again. He kept staring at the screens, waiting to see what Amara would do next, because she was the one person he still did not understand. She had cried when she first heard the news, but she had also called someone babe, and that had broken something inside Dele. She had looked calm too fast. She had whispered with Chibuzo. She had sat quietly while the others planned things he did not like. And now Dele wanted to see her true heart more than anything else. The house stayed quiet for a long time, and Dele was beginning to think Amara had gone to sleep, when suddenly one of the screens showed her leaving the bedroom again. She was wearing a soft nightdress, and she walked slowly down the hallway like someone who had too many thoughts in her head. Dele leaned closer to the screen, his eyes fixed on every move she made. She walked into his study, the big room filled with books, a desk, his pictures, and the special place where he kept important things. Dele felt his chest tighten. "Why is she going there?" he whispered. The camera in the study showed her as she stepped inside and closed the door behind her. The room was silent, and she stood in the middle for a moment, just looking around. Then she walked to his big desk and gently touched the surface with her fingers, like someone touching something they miss. She pulled out his chair, sat down, and then slowly opened the top drawer. Dele watched closely, thinking she was searching for money or papers or something she wanted to take for herself, but she did something different, something he did not expect. She reached inside the drawer and took out a small photo frame with a picture of her and Dele on their wedding day. It was the picture they took after saying their vows, when she smiled so brightly and he held her hand tightly. Amara held the photo close to her face. Her eyes became soft and shiny, like she was about to cry again. She touched Dele's face on the picture with her thumb, and then something happened that made Dele stop breathing for a moment. She whispered, "Why did you leave me like this?" Her voice was so soft and sad, like a tiny bird crying, and her face looked truly hurt. Dele sat back in his chair in the safe house, shocked and confused. She looks sad," he whispered. "She is talking to my picture. She is crying again?" This did not look like a woman who was happy to be free or happy to be with a secret lover. This looked like someone whose heart was hurting. Amara held the picture against her chest, closed her eyes, and let out a small sob. A real one, a deep one. And Dele felt something twist inside him, because for a moment he remembered the woman he first married, the one who laughed shyly, the one who cooked him his favorite meals, the one who told him stories about her childhood. For a moment he saw that woman again in her sad face. But the moment did not last long, because the door opened quietly, and Dele's heart jumped when he saw who stepped into the study. Chibuzo. He did not knock, he did not call her name, he just walked inside like he had the right to enter any room in the house. Dele leaned forward, his eyes full of anger again. "Why is he there? Why is he going to her?" he whispered angrily. Amara quickly wiped her face and put the picture back on the desk, as if she did not want anyone to see her crying. Chibuzo walked closer to her and said softly, "Amara, are you okay?" His voice was too gentle, too careful, too close, and Dele felt his stomach twist again. Chibuzo placed his hand on her shoulder in a soft way, the same soft way he did earlier, and Amara did not move away. Instead, she closed her eyes for a moment like she was tired. "Everything will be fine," Chibuzo whispered. "Just trust me." Dele felt something burn inside him. "Trust you? Trust you?" He snapped at the screen, even though they could not hear him. "Why should she trust you? What are you telling her? Why are you touching her again?" Amara nodded slowly, but she did not look happy. She looked confused, scared, and very tired. She said softly, "I don't know what to do. Everything is falling apart." Chibuzo moved a little closer and said, "I won't let anything bad happen. I'm here. I will help you handle everything." Dele stared in disbelief. "Handle everything? Who told you to handle my wife? Who told you to act like the man of my house?" he whispered angrily. Then Amara spoke again. "People are coming to the house, whispering, planning things I don't understand." She shook her head. "It feels wrong." Chibuzo's eyes shifted a little, like he was hiding something, but then he smiled gently and said, "Don't worry, just stay calm. We will get through this." Dele watched the smile and felt sick. He could not tell if Chibuzo was comforting her or tricking her. Then something else happened that made Dele even more confused. Amara stood up from the chair and hugged herself with her arms crossed tightly. "I wish I could talk to him again. Just one more time," she whispered. She did not say, "my husband." She did not say his name, but the pain in her voice made it clear who she meant. Chibuzo stepped closer and put his arms around her gently, hugging her in a way that seemed too familiar, too close, too long. Amara did not hug him back, but she also did not push him away. Dele felt his breath stop. "Why is he hugging her? Why is she letting him? What is happening?" he whispered. His heart felt like it was tearing inside him. Then Chibuzo whispered again, "You're not alone. I'll take care of everything." Those words made Dele's face grow hot with anger. He slammed his hand on the table. "I don't need you to take care of my house, my wife, my life," he shouted at the screen. But even though he was angry, something deep inside him felt confused too. Because Amara did not look happy in Chibuzo's arms. She looked trapped. She looked scared. She looked like someone who did not know what to do. Her face did not show love, it showed worry. When Chibuzo finally let go of her, Amara moved away quickly and said, "I need to be alone." Her voice was shaky. Chibuzo nodded and left the room slowly, closing the door behind him. As soon as she was alone, Amara sat back down at the desk, covered her face with her hands, and cried quietly. Dele watched her shoulders shake as tears fell down her cheeks, and he felt his anger soften just a little. Not disappear, but soften. He whispered, "Is she acting, or is this real? I don't understand." Because everything felt mixed up. She had cried earlier. She looked truly sad, but she also spoke to someone on the phone in a strange way. She also let Chibuzo hug her. She also acted calm around the others. Dele sat back in his chair, confused more than ever. He felt like he was trying to put together a puzzle with many missing pieces. One second he believed Amara loved him. The next second he believed she was betraying him. And the world inside his head felt like a storm. He stayed up watching her for the rest of the night. Amara stayed in his study for a long time, sometimes crying softly, sometimes staring at the picture, sometimes just sitting silently with her hands in her lap. She did not call anyone else. She did not smile. She did not celebrate. She did not look like someone who wanted him gone. But she had let Chibuzo get too close. She had looked too trusting around him. And she had made that phone call. So Dele still could not tell what her heart truly wanted. And that confusion hurt more than anything else. As the night slowly began to fade and the first light of morning touched the sky, Amara finally took the picture again, kissed it lightly, whispered something too soft for the camera to hear, and then left the room. Dele watched her walk down the hallway, looking weak and tired, and he whispered softly, What are you hiding, Amara? Are you loyal? Or are you lying? I must know the truth. But what Dele did not know was that the truth was much bigger than the small things he had seen. The truth was deep and wide like a river, and he was looking only at the water on top, not the powerful secrets under it. Quiet again. And so Dele stayed in the secret safe house with his eyes glued to the screens, because his heart was full of questions that had no answers yet. He had seen Amara cry. He had seen her hug his wedding picture. He had seen her whisper sad words. But he had also seen her let Chibuzo get close, and he had heard her call someone babe on the phone. All these pictures in his mind kept fighting each other like children arguing over a toy. He did not know which one was true. He did not know which one to trust. And the more he thought about it, the more confused he became. The next day began with loud voices in the mansion, because more people came to the house to talk about money, the company, and the future without Dele. But Dele did not care about them at that moment. He did not focus on Kunlo, or the lawyer, or the assistant. Instead, he focused on Amara again, waiting to see what she would do next. He sat with his elbows on his knees, leaning toward the screens, watching every step she took. She walked around the house looking tired, like she had not slept at all, and she held her phone in her hand, staring at it from time to time, like she was thinking deeply about something. Dele frowned and whispered, "Is she going to call him again? The person she called babe?" His stomach tightened as he watched her move from room to room. After a while, she went into the kitchen, and even though workers tried to talk to her, she only nodded quietly and looked down. She looked worried, and that made Dele feel both soft and angry at the same time. "Why are you worried?" he whispered at the screen. "Is it because you miss me, or because your plans are falling apart?" Hours passed, and soon Amara left the kitchen and went into Dele's office. Again. Dele watched closely, thinking maybe she wanted to take something. But instead, she sat at his desk, opened the drawer again, and pulled out the same wedding picture she had held the night before. She stared at it for a long time, then closed her eyes and sighed in a sad and heavy way. Dele felt something move inside him as he watched. But he remembered the phone call and forced himself not to trust the sadness he saw. "Maybe she is acting," he whispered. "Maybe she is pretending so no one will suspect her." He kept watching, still doubtful, still confused, still angry. While he watched her sitting alone, the screen beside it changed to show a message alert on one of his secret security computers. Dele frowned, sat up, and pressed a button to open the alert. What he saw made his eyes widen. It was a record file, a record of bank activity from the last few months. He had not checked these recently because he had been too focused on Amara. But now, as he opened the first file, he stared at the numbers with shock. Huge amounts of money had been leaving his accounts, moving out quietly, bit by bit, into strange bank names he did not recognize. Dele felt his heart drop into his stomach. "Who is taking my money?" he whispered, confused and scared. He opened the next file, then another, and another, and each one showed the same thing: missing money, missing millions, missing secrets. Everything pointing to someone stealing from him. He went deeper into the files, clicking each report fast with shaking fingers. And then he saw something that froze him completely. One of the accounts receiving money was connected to a name he knew very well: Chibuzo. Dele gasped loudly and leaned back in his chair. "My cousin? My own cousin?" he whispered in disbelief. "He is stealing from me? He has been stealing for months." His mouth dropped open as he stared at the screen, unable to believe what he was seeing. All this time he has been pretending to love me like a brother, and he was taking from me behind my back? His hands shook as he clicked another file. This one showed communication logs, messages from unknown numbers linked to foreign banks. And there, hidden in the list, was another report, a legal investigation file. It was unopened. Dele clicked it. And what he saw made him freeze. Chibuzo had been under investigation by government people. They suspected him of fraud. They suspected him of moving money illegally. They suspected him of using Dele's company name to move money he had no right to move. And then Dele saw something even worse. Chibuzo had used Amara's name once, but not for stealing. It was when she had asked a bank officer a question about missing funds months ago, a question she had asked quietly to avoid making trouble. Dele blinked hard. "Wait, Amara asked about missing money?" he whispered. His heart beat faster, but this time not with anger, with surprise. He opened more logs, and then he saw something he never expected to see. Recordings from a secret camera in the living room. Not his cameras, but another camera he didn't even know was there. Someone had planted a camera in his own house. He opened the file, and he saw Amara sitting with someone weeks before his death. Not a lover, not a friend, a woman in a suit, a private investigator. Dele sat up so fast the chair almost fell over. "What? A private investigator? Why? Why would she meet with a private investigator?" he whispered in shock. He played the clip. Amara looked nervous. She kept wringing her hands together. She whispered, "I think someone is stealing from my husband, but I don't have proof yet." The private investigator nodded and said, "We will find out." Amara continued, "Please be careful. If he finds out someone is trying to hurt him, he will get angry. I just want to protect him. Protect him. Protect him." The words echoed in Dele's mind like a bell ringing and ringing. His mouth stayed open, his hands froze, his whole body turned still. She was trying to protect me?" he whispered. He clicked another file, another clip, another meeting. This time, Amara said, "I think Chibuzo is lying to him. I think he is taking money and planning something big." Her voice was strong, scared, determined. "If something happens to my husband, promise me you will find the truth." Dele felt a strong, shaking feeling inside him, a mixture of regret, confusion, and fear. He had thought Amara was betraying him. He had thought she was calling a lover. But now he saw the truth. The phone call she had made the night he died was not to a boyfriend. It was to the private investigator. And when she said, "It's done, he's gone," she had meant the danger was real. She believed someone had killed him. She had been afraid. She had been calling the investigator to start digging faster. Dele sat in the safe house looking at the screens with wide, shocked eyes. He whispered, "She wasn't cheating on me. She was scared for me. She wasn't calm because she didn't care. She was calm because she was thinking, planning, trying to keep my secrets safe, trying to catch the people stealing from me." He held his head with both hands, feeling dizzy. Everything he thought he understood had just flipped upside down. He remembered how she cried in the study, how she hugged the wedding picture, how she whispered, "Why did you leave me like this?" He remembered the tired look in her eyes, the heavy way she walked, the sadness in her voice. None of it was fake. None of it was a trick. She was not the enemy. She was the only one who had been trying to protect him all along. Dele felt his eyes burn, and he whispered, "I was wrong about you, Amara. So wrong." His heart hurt in a new way, a guilty way, a way that felt heavy like a stone on his chest. But then he remembered one thing, Chibuzo, and the hug, and the whispering. Renina and the anger returned, but this time it was not aimed at Amara. It was aimed at Chibuzo, the real snake in his life. Dele pressed play on another file, and he saw that the private investigator had discovered something else. The jet explosion might not have been an accident. There were signs of tampering, signs of planning, signs that someone wanted him dead. Dele whispered slowly, "Someone tried to kill me." The words felt cold in his mouth. He clicked the last few reports quickly with shaking fingers. And then it all made sense. The stolen money, the secret meetings, the calmness of Kunle, the lawyer, and the assistant, the lies, the plans. Everything pointed to one huge, terrible truth. Chibuzo was part of a bigger plan. A plan to steal everything from Dele. A plan to control the company after his death. A plan that involved his friends. A plan that Amara had suspected. A plan that she was quietly trying to fight on her own. Dele leaned back slowly, staring blankly at the screens, his heart beating fast. "She was trying to save me," he whispered. "She was trying to save my company. She was trying to protect everything." And he, Dele, had doubted her love. He had doubted her heart. He had doubted her loyalty. He had been so busy watching her, judging her, suspecting her that he did not see the truth until now. And the truth was this: Amara was not his enemy. She was his only true ally. He closed his eyes and whispered, "What have I done?" Because for the first time, he felt the full weight of his mistake. And so chapter 5 ended with Dele sitting alone in the safe house, holding his face in his hands, understanding that he had misjudged the woman who loved him, while the real danger, the people who wanted to destroy him, were still walking freely inside his home. Once upon a time, after Dele finally learned the big truth that Amara had been trying to protect him and not betray him, he sat in the secret safe house with his hands covering his face because he felt so sad and so ashamed of himself. He whispered again and again, "She was helping me. She was helping me. And I thought she wanted me gone." His heart hurt because he now knew he had made a big mistake by doubting her. But even though his heart hurt, something else happened inside him too. He began to feel strong again, like a fire was waking up inside his chest. Because now he knew the real enemy, the person who had truly wanted to destroy him, was not Amara at all. It was Chibuzo, and maybe Kunle, and the lawyer, and the assistant too. People who pretended to love him but were taking from him, stealing from him, planning behind his back, and maybe even trying to kill him. He sat up slowly and wiped his eyes, even though they still felt hot and painful. He told himself, "I cannot sit here crying. I must open my eyes. I must look at everything again." So he turned to the screens and pressed new buttons to open more files, more recordings, more evidence the private investigator had collected. And what he saw next made his whole body feel cold, like someone had poured ice water down his back. There were secret messages between Chibuzo and a man from another country, a man who owned a big company that always wanted to push Dele out of business. They sent each other messages that said things like, "The plan's almost ready," and "Once he is gone, we can take everything." They talked about meetings at night, fake accounts, stolen money, and even about talking to someone inside Dele's own office to move things around quietly. It was a long chain of bad messages, and each one hurt Dele like a small knife because it showed him that Chibuzo had never been a good cousin. He had been a snake for a long time. Then Dele opened another recording. This one was a phone call between Kunle and the same foreign man. Kunle said softly, "The explosion will make everything easier. His company will be confused. We will guide Amara. She is easy to move around." Dele's eyes grew wide with anger. "Easy to move around?" he whispered angrily. "They think she is weak. They think she is soft. They think they can use her." He shook his head hard. "They do not know her at all." He pressed play on another message. This one was between the lawyer, Mr. Adeyemi, and someone from the government office. The lawyer whispered, "I already moved some documents. No one will notice. Once the crash is confirmed, we can shift everything to the group." Dele felt fire rise in his chest. Every person he trusted was part of the plan. Every one of them had been waiting for him to fall. Next, he opened the investigation file the private investigator had made about the jet explosion itself. This was the file that changed everything again. The investigator wrote that there were signs of tampering inside the plane. Something had been loosened. Something had been damaged on purpose. The investigator had even taken pictures of little tools marks and wiring that had been touched by someone who wanted the plane to crash. Dele stared at the pictures for a long time, unable to blink. His voice came out in a whisper. "So the explosion was not an accident. Someone really tried to kill me." He felt numb. He felt scared. He felt angry, but he also felt clear in his mind for the first time, because now the truth was big and bright like the sun. Chibuzo, Kunle, the lawyer, and the assistant had joined hands with a foreign company to take his company, his money, and maybe even his life. They wanted him gone forever. And if he had not made the plan to fake his death, he might really have died on that jet. He sat up straight, breathing deeply. "Amara knew something," he whispered. "She didn't know everything, but she knew enough to worry, enough to try to stop them." He opened the next recording the investigator had saved. In it, Amara said, "My husband thinks everyone loves him, but I see the way some of them look at him. I feel like something bad is coming." The investigator answered, "We will help you find the truth." And Amara said in a voice filled with fear, "Please hurry, before it is too late." Dele felt tears rise again, but this time they were not painful tears. They were soft tears, tears of regret, tears of love. "She tried to warn me," he whispered. "She tried to save me." He remembered every moment he had doubted her, every moment he had called her calmness strange, every moment he had thought she was lying. Now he understood she had been holding herself together because she was scared. But she didn't want to alert the enemies. He whispered to himself, "I misjudged her. I doubted her heart. I was wrong." His voice cracked a little, but at the same time he felt something new. A deep promise inside his chest. "I will protect her now. She protected me without me knowing. Now it is my turn." He turned his attention back to the screen showing his house. This time he did not just watch Amara. He watched everyone else more carefully. He watched how Kunlo walked around the house like he owned it. He watched how the lawyer held papers in his bag and smiled too confidently. He watched how the assistant took calls quietly with his back to the camera. And he watched how Chibuzo entered the house again, talking to workers like he was the new boss, acting like the head of the family, giving orders with a proud voice. For every step they took, Dele felt stronger, not weaker. For every whisper they shared, he felt clearer, not confused. He told himself, "I know who they are now. I see their real faces." And he whispered again, "I will make sure they pay for everything." Hours passed and Dele continued searching through more secret files. He saw messages showing that Chibuzo had been planning with Kunle for months. He saw bank statements showing stolen money. He saw camera footage of the lawyer sneaking into Dele's office at night. He saw Timmy sending messages to the foreign company. Every bit of evidence was another step in the big picture he was building in his mind. Then he opened one final file. This one was a long report from the private investigator. The investigator wrote, "It appears that Chibuzo and Kunle planned the attack on the private jet. They tampered with parts of the aircraft. Their goal was to remove Dele so they could take control of the company. Amara suspects them, but has no full proof yet. She is scared for her husband's life." Dele felt his whole body shake with anger and disbelief. He whispered, "My own cousin tried to kill me. My own best friend helped him. My trusted lawyer hid the papers. My assistant supported them. And my wife was the only one who was truly on my side." He leaned back in the chair and covered his face again, taking slow breaths, trying not to cry again. But even though he felt sad, he also felt proud of Amara. She had been strong. She had been brave. She had been quiet but clever. She had been careful. And she had been loyal when everyone else had been fake. When he finally lowered his hands and looked at the screens again, he saw Amara sitting alone in the living room with her hands on her knees. Her face looked tired but calm, the kind of calm a person has when they are trying to stay strong in a scary situation. She looked like someone carrying a heavy secret by herself. And Dele whispered, "You are stronger than they think. And I am stronger too. We will win." He took a deep breath and said softly, "I must return. I must come back. But not yet. I must gather every piece of proof. I must watch them until they expose themselves even more. Then I will return." The fire inside him grew hotter and brighter. He wasn't confused anymore. He wasn't blind. He wasn't scared. He was ready. Ready to fight. Ready to protect Amara. Ready to take back everything. Ready to face the snakes who had tried to ruin his life. As he watched Chibuzo walk through the house like a king who was claiming a kingdom, Dele whispered with a cold, steady voice, "Your game is almost over." Once upon a time, after Dele finally understood the truth about Amara and the evil plans of the people around him, he sat in the secret safe house with a new kind of fire inside his heart. This time it was not the fire of anger that made him shake. It was a strong and steady fire that made him feel brave and ready. He whispered to himself, "Now I know everything. Now I can fight. Now I can return." And the more he said these words, the more he felt like the old Dele, the strong one, the smart one, the leader everyone feared, was coming back piece by piece. Before he had been confused and hurt, like a man walking in the dark, but now he felt clear, like someone had turned on a bright light and he could finally see every corner of the room. He spent many hours preparing for what he wanted to do next. He collected every secret message, every stolen paper, every video of his traitorous friends whispering in corners. He saved the reports of the private investigator. He saved the pictures of the broken jet wires. He saved the bank statements showing stolen money. He even saved the recordings of Amara trying to protect him. He placed all these things inside a big secret folder on his computer. Then he sent copies to the police and to some other strong people in the government. He wanted to make sure that no matter what happened, the truth would not be lost. When everything was ready, he sat back and whispered, "Now it is time." He pressed a button on a hidden phone, and a man from his trusted security team answered. Only a very small group of people knew he was alive. Dele said, "Prepare everything. We move today." The man answered, "Yes, sir." And with that, the final plan began. That morning, the traders gathered inside the company's big boardroom. It was a huge room with a long, shiny table and soft chairs. Kunlo was there wearing a proud smile like he was finally getting the crown he had always wanted. The lawyer was there carrying a bag full of the stolen documents he planned to use. The assistant was there too, sending quiet messages to the foreign company. And Chibuzo was not only there, he was sitting in Dele's old seat, leaning back with his hands on the armrest as if he owned the whole place. But none of them looked sad. None of them looked like they missed Dele. None of them looked like they felt guilty. They looked like people celebrating, people waiting to take over a kingdom that did not belong to them. Kunla spoke first and said, "Today is the day we take full control." The lawyer nodded and began pulling out papers. "We will sign everything before the others arrive," he said. Chibuzo added, "Amara will not stop us. She is too broken." They all smiled. Dele watched them from the safe house through a live camera connected to the boardroom. His face grew firm and calm. "You think you will win," he whispered. "You think you are safe. But your time is over." Just then, another screen showed something else. Amara was in her room, sitting on the edge of the bed with her hands on her lap. She looked tired, but also like someone thinking very deeply. She did not know what was about to happen. But Dele did, and he whispered, "You will not carry this alone anymore." He stood up from his chair and put on a neat dark suit. He tied his tie slowly, carefully, like a man preparing for battle. Then he put on his shoes, each step firm and loud on the safe house floor. He looked at himself in the mirror. For the first time in days, he saw strength in his own eyes. "Time to return from the dead," he said softly. Then he walked out of the safe house with his security team following behind him. At the company building, the traders were now waiting for the board members to arrive so they could take control. The lights in the boardroom were bright, papers were spread everywhere. Everyone was smiling. But suddenly, without warning, all the lights in the room went off at once. Everything became dark. The men froze. "What is happening?" Kunla asked, confused. "Did someone turn off the building power?" the lawyer whispered, shaking. Then a soft humming sound began, like a machine waking up. A projector turned on by itself, casting a bright square of light on the big wall. Everyone stared at it. The projector showed a picture of Dele, alive, standing, breathing, no smiling. Kunle jumped from his seat. What is this?" Chibuzo dropped the pen he was holding. No, this is not possible." The lawyer's hands shook so much, the papers slipped from his fingers. The assistant stepped back until he hit the wall, his face pale like chalk. Then a voice came from the speakers, a calm, deep voice they all knew very well. "Did you miss me?" And at that exact moment, the door of the boardroom opened slowly. Everyone turned to look, and there he was, Dele Adeniran, not dead, not broken, not injured, standing tall in the doorway with his security team behind him. His eyes were sharp and steady like someone who had seen everything and was ready to take back the world. For the first time since he had faked his death, Dele smiled. But it was not a soft smile. It was a strong smile. A smile that said, "I know everything, and I am here for justice." Kunla stepped back, terrified. "Dele, you are supposed to be dead." The lawyer stuttered. How are you alive?" The assistant could not even speak. He just covered his mouth with both hands and stared. But the one who looked the most scared, the most confused, the most broken, was Chibuzo. He tried to stand up, but his legs shook too much. He whispered, No, this cannot be." Dele walked into the room slowly, each step echoing loudly. He stopped at the head of the table, looking down at all of them. "You thought you could steal from me," he said. "You thought you could take my company. You thought you could kill me." He leaned closer. "But you forgot one thing." They all held their breath, waiting. Dele raised his head and said clearly, "I am not easy to kill." Before anyone could speak, the doors burst open again. Police officers and government agents rushed inside. They grabbed Kunla by the arms. Kunla shouted, Wait! This is a mistake!" But no one listened. They pulled the lawyer too, and he yelled, "I did nothing wrong." The assistant tried to run, but a guard caught him easily. Then they turned to Chibuzo. Chibuzo looked at Dele with wide, shaking eyes. "Please, listen to me," he begged. "It was not my idea. They made me do it." Dele stared at him with a cold expression. "You were my family," he said slowly, "and you tried to destroy me." Chibuzo fell to his knees and cried, "I am sorry. Please forgive me." But Dele shook his head. "You were planning to steal everything I built. You wanted me gone forever. Sorry is too late." The officers handcuffed Chibuzo and pulled him to his feet. Chibuzo kept screaming and begging, but no one listened. After they were taken away, the other board members arrived, and when they saw Dele standing there alive and strong, they gasped and held their mouths in shock. Some cried, some hugged him, some thanked God loudly. Everyone was confused and relieved. Dele raised his hand and said, "There will be time to explain everything, but for now, the company is safe." But even as he said these words, his mind was not with the board members. His heart was thinking of one person, Amara. He had to go to her now. He had to see her face. He had to tell her everything. He had to say he was sorry for ever doubting her. He left the boardroom, walked past all the workers who were crying and smiling when they saw him, and got into a car. As the driver took him home, Dele stared out the window with a soft, worried look. "I hope she forgives me," he whispered. "I hope she understands." When he reached the mansion, he walked quickly to the door. The workers saw him and gasped. Some stepped back in shock. Some began to cry. One woman even fell to her knees and said, "Sir, you are alive! You are alive!" But Dele just nodded and rushed inside. He walked through the hallway with fast steps. The house felt different now, lighter, warmer, like it was waking up after a long nightmare. He went straight to the bedroom. The door was half open. He pushed it gently and stepped inside. And there, sitting on the bed with her hands clasped together, was Amara. She looked up. Her eyes widened. Her breath caught. For a long moment, neither of them moved. It was like time had stopped. Then Amara stood slowly, tears filling her eyes. She whispered, "Dele." He nodded softly. Her body trembled. Once upon a time, when Dele and Amara stood in the bedroom, staring at each other, the whole world felt quiet, like everything around them had stopped moving, just so the two of them could breathe the same air again. Amara's eyes were big and full of tears that rolled down her cheeks like little drops of rain. Her lips shook and her hands trembled in front of her body. Dele felt his heart twist at the sight, because this was the woman he had doubted, the woman he had tested, the woman he had left alone in a world that believed he was dead. He took one step toward her, slow and gentle. Amara took a tiny step backward, not because she was afraid of him, but because she could not believe what she was seeing. She whispered in a tiny voice, "Are you real, or am I dreaming?" Dele shook his head softly, and his own eyes began to shine with tears. "I am real," he whispered back. "I am alive." Amara let out a sound that was half a sob and half a gasp. She raised her hand and touched his cheek very gently, like she was touching something fragile. When she felt the warm skin under her fingers, her whole body shook again. You are alive," she cried. "You are really alive." She suddenly threw herself into his arms and hugged him tight, holding him like she never wanted to let go. Her tears soaked his shirt. She cried so loudly that her shoulders shook, and Dele wrapped his arms around her and held her even tighter, resting his chin on her head. For a long time, they just stood like that, crying and breathing and feeling everything they had missed. Amara cried because she thought she had lost him forever. She cried because she had been alone in the house with snakes pretending to be his friends. She cried because she had been scared day and night, and she cried because she felt relief so big that it almost broke her chest. Dele cried because he knew he had hurt her deeply. He cried because he had doubted her love. He cried because he had forced her to face danger alone. He cried because he had thought she betrayed him when she had really been the only person fighting for him in the shadows. When they finally pulled apart, Amara looked up at him with wet eyes and said, "Why? Why did you leave me like that? Why didn't you tell me? I thought you were gone forever. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I was so scared." Dele took her hands gently and sat with her on the bed. "I know," he said softly, "and I am so sorry." His voice broke. "I was wrong. I made a mistake. I thought you didn't love me. I thought you wanted my money. I thought you wanted someone else." Amara shook her head quickly, fresh tears falling. "No, Dele. I never wanted anything from you except love. I never wanted another man. I only wanted you. I was trying to save you. I knew someone was trying to hurt you. I tried to tell you. I tried to warn you. But you didn't listen." Dele lowered his head in shame. "I didn't listen because I was blinded by fear," he whispered. "I let the lies in my mind grow too big. I let my doubts control my heart. I thought testing you would show me the truth, but the truth was inside you all along." Amara covered her mouth with her hands and cried again. "Do you know what it felt like to think you exploded in a plane? Do you know what it felt like to see your things and know you would never come back through the door? Do you know?" Her voice cracked. "Do you know how much it hurt?" Dele squeezed her hands gently and said, "I know now, and I am sorry for every tear you cried because of me. If I could turn back time, I would never have done this. I should have trusted you. I should have believed in your love." Amara looked at him with hurt in her eyes. "You didn't trust me," she whispered, "even though I trusted you with my whole heart." "Yes," Dele said quietly. "That is the truth, and I will spend every day from now on showing you that I am sorry." His voice softened even more. "But I also came back so you will not carry this pain alone anymore. I came back to protect you, to stand beside you, to fix what I broke." Amara shook her head slowly. "I don't know if everything can be fixed. My heart is hurt." Her voice was small and tired, like a child waking from a nightmare. Dele looked at her with so much softness that his face almost melted. "I know," he said. "I do not expect everything to be perfect today. I do not expect you to smile and pretend nothing happened. I just need one thing." Amara wiped tears and asked, "What is that?" "For you to give me a chance," Dele whispered. "A chance to make things right. A chance to rebuild trust. A chance to show you the love you deserve." Amara looked down at their hands locked together. She stayed quiet for a long time, thinking deeply. Then she looked up again and whispered, "I don't know how to feel right now, but I know I don't want to lose you again." Dele felt something warm spread through his chest. "You won't lose me again," he promised. "Not ever." Amara leaned into him and rested her head on his shoulder. He gently wrapped his arm around her, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. They stayed like that in silence, both breathing slowly, both thinking about everything that had happened. After some time, Amara whispered, "What will happen to them? The people who tried to kill you?" Dele's eyes turned cold and strong again. "They are finished," he said. "They have already been taken by the police. They will answer for everything. They will face justice." Amara nodded slowly. She felt a small wave of relief wash over her. "Good," she whispered. "They thought they could use me. They thought I was weak." Dele kissed her forehead gently. "They did not know your strength," he said, "but I do. You were the only brave one while everyone else was lying." Amara closed her eyes. "But it still hurt," she whispered softly. "All of it hurt so much." Dale held her hand again and said, "I know, and now it is my turn to carry the pain with you. From today, we face everything together." Amara took a deep breath and nodded. "Together," she whispered. They stayed close, leaning on each other, feeling the warmth of being reunited after so much darkness. After a long silence, Amara asked in a quiet voice, "Will you stay here tonight, or will you leave again?" Dale squeezed her fingers gently and said, "I am not leaving anymore. Not today, not tomorrow, not next week. I am home." Amara's lips trembled into a weak smile. "Home," she whispered, like someone tasting a sweet word. For the next little while, they talked softly about the lies, the fear, the secrets, the betrayal, and the pain. But they also talked about love, trust, hope, and healing. Dele apologized many times. Amara cried many times, and little by little, the heavy air between them became lighter. When evening came, they went downstairs together. Workers saw Dele and gasped again with happiness and shock. Some cried, some ran to call others, some knelt to thank God. The mansion felt alive again. Dele held Amara's hand the whole time, not letting go even for 1 second. Later, when they returned to the bedroom, Amara looked at him with softer eyes and said, maybe things can get better." Dele nodded slowly. "They will," he whispered, "but only if we work on it together." Amara took a deep breath and said, "Then let us try." And Dele smiled, not the big proud smile he used to give the world, but a small, gentle smile. A smile meant only for her. He whispered, "Thank you."